Welcome to Paranormal Experience, Cat Hobson Show. I am Mark Elliot Fults, and today I am being a host with the most. I'm here to, because she had a little bit of throat problems. Everybody's going through this winter stuff, so hope you're feeling better, Cat. I know she'll be on the chat part of the show on the side. And I am the fat psychic. And besides being a blind psychic, since I don't have my glasses on and I have no contacts. So I will try to read comments if I can. If I can't, if you see me going, then that's just because I can't see. But we're going to have 2 hours of just me. I am considered Special K. I used to have a friend who would call me that. And so today I'm just going to be Special K. And we are going to talk about different things going on. And of course, this is Paranormal Experience, the Dark Realm TV app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. So, welcome, all. Welcome. Now, we are in the intersectum. Now, I am, for those who don't know who I am a metaphysician, a trance medium, psychic, and I have been working in the public for going on now 43 years. And that gets kind of crazy when you think about it. You know, I've been in this since I was 18. And now I'm 62 going on 63. So, wow. And I have so many interests. It's kind of bizarre. I've been dropped on my head, talked to the dead. I was murdered going on 33 years now, and ago. And when I say that to people, you know, I mean, I was attacked in a random act of violence and came back from it. It was a rough experience. But I wouldn't be me without that experience. And so it's all been worth it. But boy, woo, getting through it. And there's Lori. And Kat. All right. I am just a regular guy. I talk to dead people and I do card readings for people. I do mediumship. I talk to their dead, deceased loved ones that have crossed over. And I just, I love life. I don't know about you, but I love life. You know, I have a friend who they have a home that they're buying. They live and they're never settled. And it's like, you know, I was thinking when I came home from visiting them the other day, I went, you know, I'm happy. I don't have money. I am the fat psychic. But I'm happy. I'm 62. You know, I have to open my casket every morning, crawl out, and then in the evening time after my insomnia calms down, I pull the casket back down and I go to sleep. And I wake up every morning and I do my prayers. You know, I'm metaphysical. I think a lot of people misunderstand metaphysics. You know, when they think it's you know, I pray all the time, but of course I do my own kind of prayer. You know, and so I'm always so glad, even if it's a crappy day, even if something is going on where I'm very stressed, because I have post-traumatic stress, so sometimes, things will that other people can take for granted. It gets kind of can be a hard day, and I'm still like I do my prayers and I go, I'm so grateful to the universe, to the consciousness, for making me who I am, for giving me my life, for giving me my breath, for allowing me to be able to enjoy the beauty of the earth, because the earth is, the world is beautiful and cruel at the same time. And I try to see the beauty. I love animals. I love cooking. I love flowers. I love my home. I love peace. And I like to laugh. And I didn't have a lot to laugh at when I was young, so I would laugh. It was my mechanism to keep from just falling down the deep dark hole, because it was like, oh my lord, you know. So I've had things that have, though, if I'm laughing really hard, my cousin knows. One time she accidentally hit me in the head with a rock, and it was a funny story, but gave me the biggest concussion I ever had, which is saying something because I've had about 6 in my life. And I started laughing. I started thinking about how she was going to explain to me, because it was a rock. She had a dog that would go out in the woods, bring back a rock, and she'd throw the rock. Well, she didn't have her glasses on. And we were talking, having a great time. This is a few years after, about 8 years after my attack. We're having a great time, walking in the fall, having a wonderful conversation. And I turn around, and she's throwing the rock, and she thinks she's throwing it in the woods. Well, I clicked my eyes, and I can see the rock coming here, hit me in the temple. Now, that should have just killed me. Thank goodness I have a thick alien skull. And she was freaking out. And then I started laughing because I was like, that's the way I'm going to die, is my favorite cousin hitting me in the head with a rock that she was throwing for a dog, and trying to explain that to my mother. I laughed for 3 days. I don't know what, but that was my mechanism. That kept me. I laughed so hard for so long. And I had the worst headache in the world, but I was alive, so I was so grateful to be alive, but it was so, and she was traumatized. She would have rather cut off her arms to do something to me like that. And she still she goes, oh my Lord. And I said, it's okay. I lived, So every day, uh, even if it's a rough day, physically, mentally, spiritually, because right now we're in some rough times for people, you got to be thankful you're alive. You can live your life. There are people you can love. There are animals you can love. You can change somebody's life. You can change your life. You can look around you, and if you don't like something, change it. Don't sit there going, well, I don't know what. Change it. If you're not happy, change it. Try to make changes. And if it's something you can't change, learn. What are you supposed to learn from that? Everything's a kind of a test, a learning skill. When I was going through the transition period, the thing pretty much, the question you get in your head is, what did you learn? What did you bring? And at that time, when I went through the transition, I was like, well, I haven't accomplished a whole lot. So now, in the 33 years since, I've done a lot. I'm an author. I got to act. I've been in plays and stage, and I'm creating an album called The Witching Tree. being an author has been so exciting, and working with Cinch Hill and Teal Gray and meeting all these wonderful people like J.V. Noseworthy and Tommy Collins and Tom Franklin and Austin Lawrence and all these incredible people. Just and if I didn't mention your name, you're special. And Kat Hobson, she helped me do a show, Universal Truths. I'll probably be picking that back up at some point here soon because I had a store. You know, I had, now I'm going to have a cooking show. I just did a cookbook, which let me tell you, I'm writing a book called The Psychic Worm Stitch, which is about how it all works, how I think it works, doing the meditations, doing this stuff, doing all this complicated stuff. It's easier to write about the universe than it was to write the cookbook. The cookbook was hard, but it was wonderful. And now I'm addicted to writing it. And actually, since I've stopped it, that we got that one out. When I get my cooking show going, the Fat Psychic Cooking Show, which will be a comedy horror cooking show, then I'm at some point going to try and have a Patreon page. If I do that, then I've got other recipes. Because at some point we had to kind of stop what we were doing. Because we both were overloaded with recipes. But we had like 1,788 recipes. The book, the paperback, is 3 pounds. 472 pages. And on Kindle, it's over 1,000 pages. And so it's I can't believe, once you get past the first book, then you're like, okay, let's go to the next one. And so it's all an adventure. And I like to look at life as an adventure. What am I learning? What am I going to learn? What am I going to bring to this thing I call life? And now I'm starting a new phase. And tonight I'll talk about some of that. I'll talk about some of the cookbook. I'll talk about Austin Lawrence and the Dead Chronicles and Cinch Hill introduced me to Eric Sims. And because, see, here, I live in Florida, but I'm still considered kind of an outsider because I've been here 7 years, but I'm still an outsider. And I'm a metaphysician, I'm a Wiccan, I'm a third degree Wiccan, I'm a third degree, special magic person. And so everything is not, it's not wookie-woo. If you understand energy, everything out there, is... It has to have a physical, it's roots in the physical. So I try to take the roots of the physical, put them together, and then you get results to get what you need. And so, and that's kind of like cooking. You have a recipe. You take this element, that element, put them together to get a result. No different. And except sometimes that cooking result might be special. But we try, and then if we fail, we try again. Or if something I do doesn't work, I don't sit and, I may have a moment of that. I may go, whoa, for a second, and then I get up and what's next? Because you can't stop. You have to keep momentum. And right now, strange things are happening for me that the doors are opening that I've been putting energy forward. Now the doors are opening strangely, but they're opening. And so that's, I'm like, well, something's good happening. So now I have to take advantage of that. Now, You know, you work and work and work to get something done. Then it's like, now you gotta dance a little harder. And that's what I do. I mean, you know, it's never going to get easier. It never gets slower. You always, I think when you're young, you think, oh, I'm going to reach this point, and then that's just the way it is. Well, you reach that point, then it's you gotta get the next point. It's like you're always climbing. Nothing ever stays the same. Nothing stays situated. You know, and that's one thing. Like all rich people that I've known, they're so unhappy usually because you know they're so worried about being poor. They're so worried about keeping that money. They're so worried about their prestige. They're so worried, even though they don't have to worry about it. And they're always chasing that more, more, more. And they're never happy. Even though they have what regular people, if they had that fall on them, you know, they think that would make their life happy. It's not always about money. Money has its own problems. I'm a poor little waif a lot of times, but I'm very happy with what I've successfully built for myself. Um, I'm, I don't know, you know, you just have to keep going forward. There is no reverse. You know, sometimes you have to reverse and go, sorry, didn't mean to run over you, you know, like kind of thing. But for yourself, you have to just keep going forward. And I've never stopped, you know, and at the worst, darkest parts of my life, I never stopped. And even when I didn't have family helping me. I didn't have family who really gave a, you know, and I didn't have good friends. And I was very lonely. I spent a very lonely childhood. I had a lot of people in my family, but I was very lonely. And I think a lot of people go through that. And because I just wasn't like them, so I wasn't included. And so now I love friends. I love creating a space for them to come and sit and visit and have a good time. And my dear, dear, dear friend Lester, who has departed this world 25, 20 something years ago, 23 years ago, he always was so happy to see me. He always hugged me. He always hugged me when I left. And he was genuinely sweet and kind. And I remember that feeling. I missed that so much from him. So I try to do that with the people who come and see me. And I try to do that with the people I do readings for. And I try to make them, you know, you never know what day, you know, somebody's going to come to you and they're just broken. And just your kindness, a kind word, a kind help, or just positivity will change them. You know, and I've had that experience. I've had people affect me. I've affected other people. You can too. So now, you know, during this period with everything changing, you know, we seem to, there's so many people want to take us back. Well, you know, when they go like the good old days, well, some of those good old days weren't that good. You know, they were rougher. There were some good things that happened around us, but no, some of this stuff is not so hot. So you know, you gotta really develop who you are and stand by it. And you got to know who you are. Not who someone's telling you you are, who you are. And you have as much right to live as anyone else. You have as much right to your rights as anyone else. You have to fight for it. Because there are places in this world where you can't show your face. They're not listening to people's voices. They're not listening. They don't give a cluck. As they would say, they don't care. And you have to care. And you have to care about your rights, but you also have to care about the rights of other people. So, just because if it's somebody who you don't care for, or they don't fall into your thing, you have to agree to disagree, and you have to understand that everyone has a right to live, a right to love, a right to be in this incredible world. And it's so easy to fall into self-pity, and it's so hard to get out of that hole, and it's so hard to look at other people with empathy. How would you feel if someone did you the way that, if you have a misguided thing you're trying towards someone and they did that to you, how would you feel? And treat your neighbor as you want to be treated. So this year, though, I've decided, even though there's all this little rain cloud going on, I've decided to laugh. I've decided to have a good time. And that's why I started doing the cookbook and started the cooking show, which will be coming out. Hopefully the first one will be ready by February 14th or 15th. And I just thought, be crazy. Be fun. Why not? I like to, when I was young, and I was a prissy little thing, I really didn't have a accent. My father, who was definitely, his people were from Texas and everything, and he put himself through college, and his family was poor, poor, poor. But he had no accent for, when he would talk at work. And actually, for a long time, I didn't have an accent. I talked like this. And maybe to someone that is an accent. But I had what I considered like an elevator voice. Then when I was in junior high and high school, they were making fun of me because I didn't have a southern accent. So I started having a southern accent. And people liked that. I don't know why. But they did. Southerners talk like this sometimes. And some of them talk like ends and over yonder. And that's not making fun of anybody. That's just, we talk like that. Around my family, there were people in my family who talked a lot weirder than that. So I embraced my southernness. And so I am a little southerner. So I thought, well, when I do this little cookbook, my mean old grandma's good old cookbook, which is online. What is it? A plug. The grandma, my father's mother, woo, 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 woo. You want to talk about a mean person? Woo, shameless. No shame. And my father was kind of afraid of her, kind of let her have her way, and she would just do anything. And I can't even imitate what her sound was, but she had no affect. So when she was furious, when she was happy, when she was anything, that's kind of her face. You were like, oh. And when she was doing something hideous, cold, stone cold. So, but boy, her food affected my life because I really was addicted to food. That was my only comfort. And so her food was great. My mother was a great cook too, but grandma's food was a whole nother step up. And when I was 13, she quit cooking for all sorts of reasons, but she quit cooking. And so, you know, it's been almost 50 years since I've been able to taste her food or in that. But in the 90s, after she passed and I got her recipe books, let me tell you, she would have burned them to a crisp if she thought anyone was going to get them. She would, if she gave you a recipe, if you dared ask her for a recipe, she would give you the wrong recipe so that when you made it, it would turn out like crap. And she did that to my ex-sister-in-law twice on these things that rolls, these special dinner rolls. And we didn't know, that was way before the internet. I mean, we're talking like 1973, 74. And so we didn't know what those were called. But they were these little dinner rolls, and they were made with they were icebox rolls. But they were made with 3 little balls of dough. You put them in a muffin tin, and it would make this muffin top roll. And you could pull them apart. Oh, they were so good. And so she gave her the recipe kindly when she asked for it. And they turned out, so Thanksgiving, she made them. Crap. So she thought, well, maybe I did something wrong. Went back to her, got another recipe of it, and Christmas, crap. And it was so, she's still mad over that. We call that being grandma'd. So you never ever gave grandma the chance to slip the knife in. Because boy, sister, you think Michael Myers was it? She's a Michael Myers. She was, she'd get you. She'd get you bad. And, but I got her recipes. And, there were things in the 90s and stuff. I started going, oh, she used to make these big stacked, 3 stacked or 3 layered scratch cakes, like German chocolate cake. Coconut cake. She did a great coconut, but her German chocolate cake was lovely. And I started going, well, idiot, if you want to eat it, make it. So, and I didn't have a lot of confidence in cooking, so I started making food. And I found out I had a knack for it. My father was like his mother. He could cook well. If he cooked, it was fabulous. And he did T-bone steaks that beat they beat the Texas Roadhouse steaks by just his were better. And he was raised around Texans because his mother and father his mother had lived in Texas. And when he was down there visiting, he got addicted to steaks. And so when I was a kid, that's, his thing, because he became very successful. And one of his successful things he loved to do, he wasn't greedy with food, every Saturday, for years, from the 60s and 70s, up into the early 80s, he would cook steaks. And I didn't know that anybody didn't do that. A lot of people don't do that. And I found out it was weird. I think in my economics class, they were asking about, special foods or anything we did. And I said that. And he's like, wow, must be nice. And I was like, yeah, maybe everyone doesn't get to do that, So, but boy, they were so good. But he wouldn't give you recipes either. I mean, my brother would go sit with him while I was cooking them. I helped prepare them beforehand, putting, slivers of garlic in the steaks and stuff. But, I kind of put together how he did it. I put that in the book. But he wouldn't really share a recipe. His mother wouldn't share a recipe. Um, I, on the other hand, I like to share. I like to put out there, and I like to do. And I like people to enjoy food. Because to me, my favorite things, when we have Christmas and Thanksgiving and October, Halloween. Halloween is my Christmas. And I love to cook soups and chilies and desserts. And to me, you just can't share happiness as much as you can with food. Because one thing in my family that was great that I did learn, my mother grew up in a house of 10 kids. So there was always a huge pot of soup or beans and cornbread, or roast. She did great roast. But the soup, or what we called American goulash, which that is my favorite. I think that really is my favorite thing in the world, is this goulash. Because, I would come home, it would be a terrible day or whatever. And that was all made the world all better. And we had a fireplace, which she insisted on that when they built the house. She wanted a fireplace. So we'd sit in front of the fireplace and eat soup or goulash or beans and cornbread and talk. And it just was... Food was the only time my family would behave. Because on Christmas, you could bet, when I was a kid, it would all be nice. The gifts would be all nice. The get through the supper, the Christmas dinner, excuse me, would be all nice. But somebody would have to show themselves. There would be a fight, an argument, something. So, I would get through dinner and then get the heck out of there because I knew before one of them would do it. So, but during food, they never showed up or did anything bad. Excuse me, I'm going to have a little drink. So it was funny. But, so you'd eat, grab your gifts, and run. But my mama always did a great spread. Now, Grandma would come and look at the food. She would never eat anyone else's food. She would bring her own food if she touched anything. But usually she would sit there and drink her coffee and look over the lid and with her evil eyes watching it. She never ate anyone else's food. But she'd sit there. She didn't like us, so, she didn't like anybody. So she would just sit there and stare at us as we ate her food. Which could have been special. There might have been something special going on there. But my mama cooked great food. And for Thanksgiving, always we have wonderful turkey and hams and she loved to make, pecan pies and coconut pies and things like that. Now, one of the things I had a good time with at Christmas and Thanksgiving, one of my favorite recipes I found. See, now I have Grandma's recipes, which were a lot. And then I have, I have my mama's and my dad's, so it's kind of a legacy recipe book. And then I started collecting. And I started finding weird stuff. Because Grandma would eat weird stuff. Cook weird stuff. Her and Grandpa, that was their comfort food. And it was awful stuff to me. But that was what they personally, on purpose, would eat. Were things that, look like an autopsy. and they just were from the era where you didn't waste anything. Well, they ended up liking some of that stuff. To me, it was not the thing I'd go for. You know, anything that looked like that was brains, or anything that was tripe, or anything that was gizzards and ginnards, and You know, I am very simple. I like my chicken. Now, she cooked great chicken. Fried apple pies, loved that. Loved mashed potatoes and blah blah blah. Make great, all of that. But she also made, apparently, because they ate it all the time, that she made pig brains and eggs and things like that. You know, squirrels, right? You know, they ate a lot of stuff they ate. It's like, I just couldn't do it. But when I did the recipe book, I split it into Pretty Sister recipes, which there were no pretty sisters in her family. Pretty looking or acting, either. And then the Ugly Sister recipes. So when I started with Sin, Trader Hill, oh, sorry. I think I said something gross. Sorry. I'm sorry if I disturbed your eating. But I split it into the Pretty Sisters. And at first, the recipe book was going to be all Pretty Sisters recipes. And then I started going, well, you know, all this other stuff. People really, you know, it's very a curiosity. It's like a car wreck, you know, and what people really ate and what people really served on the table when they didn't know, you know, when nobody else was around. It was just family. So, and my father liked some stuff that, and you know, I'd have died before I would put a piece of that store in my mouth. So, it developed into the Ugly Sisters in the back and the Pretty Sisters in the front. So, which I thought was kind of fun. You know, I thought maybe that's a little weird. But then, hello, Miss Elizabeth. And I thought that was fun. Then I started going, all right, what else can we do? Because I'm my mother's family. Some of her people were into funeral homes, which is a whole different thing. A whole different segment of life and death. But then I started looking at the, you know, well, food that affects us, you know, funeral food. And in the 60s and 70s, you know, everybody, when somebody died, you'd get all this food and you'd take over your best dishes and you'd take it to the family, and or you take it to the funeral home, and it was like a reunion. You know, they'd have in the kitchen just full of food and full of talking and chattering and laughing and whatever. And so I got exposed to funeral food, and I would think, well, you know, nowadays people order, you know, takeout or Taco Bell or pizza, which is fine, you know, which is fine. But in my day, you know, it was always somebody would bring a ham or, you know, a casserole or something, you know. So you would end up with food. And, but the more along as I went, you know, I mean, in my life, you know, I learned all sorts of weird things. And so when I started collecting my stuff, I started looking at the history of, you know, where funeral foods kind of started. And, you know, in the beginning, it was more of not funeral foods, but, you know, paying homage to the dead or absorbing the energy of the person that had died. So you keep them with you, literally, or you take that essence of them. And then during the process of people developing that, you know, there was the Sin Eater. And in Wales, which I have some Welsh, which I'm very drawn to it. There was, of course, the Sin Eater. Now, if you watch, I think it's Night Gallery, had a segment, about the Sin Eater. I remember watching that when I was a little kid. The guy who played John Boy Walton played the Sin Eater. And it was so interesting that, it would almost be like a family business. But, during your time of uh, famine and plagues and stuff like this, a lot of people just were poor and food was scarce. But if you were a sin eater, you got paid, you got fed. And so the sin eater, I have the whole ritual in my book about the sin eater and the speech he gives and all this. But the women would have a very important part in it, because another aspect of funerals and things like that, before they have funeral homes, you would usually show the person at your home, then you would take them to the graveyard and be buried. And it was before funeral homes became embalmers and stuff like that, after the Civil War. So the family would take care of everything, but people were still afraid the spirit would haunt them. So, and my mother during the 60s, she had a lady who worked for her named Willie Mae. And Willie Mae would not leave by the door she entered, because she felt like if any bad spirits were in a house, they would follow you through the door you came through. So she would always come in the side, leave out the front. And so when people had funerals, they had a parlor usually in the house, and you would have display the person who died in the parlor, and there usually was a door for the carrying out door. So you come in the front, take them out the side through the parlor door, so that the spirit wouldn't be able to find its way back. Part of it, that kind of thing. But to make sure of that, when they had the Sin Eater and the Welsh, now in the time of my grandparents, my mother's parents, in the 1890s, there were still incidences of Sin Eaters. And what you would do, the lead woman of the house who'd been chosen to kind of direct all this energy, they would take the body, put it on like sawhorses, put it out in front, and have them on a board or whatever, and put a linen cloth over them, because that was a special cloth. That was a like clean, beautiful linen, white, very pure. And you put that cloth on, and they would make bread dough and put it on there and let it rise. And in rising, it took in the sin. So then the woman would take the bread in, bake it, and while it was baking, they'd call the Sin Eater. And he'd get himself all dolled up, and he'd make a big show, come up the street. And when the bread was ready, the lady of the house, or the lady who had been put in charge of it, she'd bring out the bread, she'd set it on the person, well, along with other food, and a thing of beer or ale, a bowl of it. And she would hand the stool under the corpse to the Sin Eater to give him power over the energy. She was giving him the stool to take the energy. Then she would give him the coin over the body. And when she did that, she was paying him for his services, and he took that coin. And then he would be in charge of the spirit. And then, once he was, he would eat the banquet on top of the corpse. Sorry if anyone's eating. You're still eating. But to take that energy, to take that spirit. And then he would do a speech where he pawned his soul for the person. He would stand up, do this lovely speech, actually. And then after it's finished, he would turn and run, and they would chase him and kick him and chase away the sin, you know. And so their dead one, their deceased loved one, was now clean and pure to go into heaven. And the sin eater took that sin with him. And it could be a family business. If you were a sin eater, you always ate. You always got paid. And it could be son to son to son. It was more like a male dominated business as far as I know. And I'm sure in a pinch, if they had to have a female do it, that lady would do it. But it was then when they died, you know, they'd have to have a sin eater eat their sins. And I just thought that was fascinating. So I had that in the book, and I thought, you know, this is going to turn this book a little weirder, but it's fascinating. And now we keep ourselves separated so much from death and from the person that now you would no more go do that. If they put a spread of T-bone steaks on the person, you ain't gonna eat that. But that's how they did it in the old days. But that was still going on until the turn of last century. You know, and that's not that far. I mean, I think, like, they probably were doing it up until the First World War, I bet you. And then everything changed for the world kind of after the First World War. Everything changed, and the younger people started kind of separating themselves from the older people, which is what happens. The old beliefs, they make their own new beliefs. And so, and over the time, now we've lost all of that, you know. I mean, they even have places where you can, I think in California, where you can just drive by, and they stick them in a window and you can just drive by. You don't even have to go in the funeral home. You don't even have to bring a donut. But I kind of liked it that people would bring food and share memories, but we weren't eating the sins of the person. And actually, some of the people in my family, there ain't a ham big enough to take care of that sin. Let me tell you. So they would have been out of luck. But would you want to be a senator? Heck no. Ew. And they were a needed service, but they treated them terrible. They treated them like they had the plague a lot of times, but when they needed them, they took their hats off and paid them respects, and because they were doing a service. And all of these things that people do as ritual, we still have rituals, but maybe those seem a little foreign to us. But what we do will be as foreign to someone else in 100 years. Then, they'll go, "Why did they do that?" I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff we do. There's a lot of weird stuff we eat. They're not as weird as some of the stuff I think people used to eat on a whole. But I like that kind of thing. So my book took on that kind of history. It has that history. It has the history of frozen Charlottes, which they're beautiful desserts. But it's based on a poem about a dead girl who froze to death because she was being vain and didn't want to cover up, and she froze to death on a trip to a Christmas party. And then people made dolls and made songs and made toys and made food. And Frozen Charlotte, which is beautiful looking. There's one that I love. I've got to make it for Easter. Is a violet Charlotte. Because you take this layered pan, basically, and most Frozen Charlottes are a pudding, or they're made out of kind of a gelatin material. Back then, gelatin was a little different than what we're used to now, but it was considered classy. Now we've gotten, it's jello. No, back then it was delicate and beautiful. And they would, in the pan, they would put in violets. You'd have like a 3-layer pan of, it would be circular. And it would be three, like a pyramid stack of 3. And you would take these candied violets and put them in the, take a little bit of the gelatin, put it around, stick the violets in it. Then you'd use grape juice and things like that, or violet, essence of violet, violet, not violent, violet, and or grape juice, and make it like a grape colored jelly. And then you would, when you put it out, you'd put whipped cream or something in the center, and wafers, or like lady fingers, and then put cream in the center, and it would be this layer of violets in the jello, and beautiful things. Oh, it's gorgeous, and it's based on something kind of gross, but it's beautiful. Apricot charlottes, orange charlottes, apple charlottes, anything they could think of. And so I was fascinated on that history. So I tried in putting it all in, and I thought, I think it's going to be fun. I think people will enjoy it, but I didn't know how. Now that it's together, I'm finding out people like it because it's not typical. And there are other stories, I tell the stories about, my family and things through it. I had to take a lot of those out because we had someone read some of the original story of my grandmother, and they were like, oh, what? Well, what? Because she was really something. So I kept it cute. But we started, and then, I would say things, horrible things while I was typing, dictating my thing. I would say awful things about this stuff, and we were going to put that in, and then these little smart remarks and stuff. It entertained her, entertained me, but I thought, nah, it's not appropriate. So I had to take those out. I was a good boy. I had to show restraint. And I took my grandmother's story from 4,000 words to about 2,000. So that shows you how much I showed restraint. But because she was a character, an evil character, but she had a lot of, I had a lot of stories about her and her folks. And someday I'll put it all in a book. But in a cookbook, she didn't write her own recipes, but boy, she could take what she had and make it so much better. And the one thing I know I cook a little better than hers is the German chocolate cake, because hers always had a little chemical taste in it. I think what she was doing toward the end of cooking, she would take the icing. You could buy the icing in the 60s and 70s, and German chocolate icing or whatever. And she would do something with it and doctor it. And it had this little chemical thing in it. And I make the icing from scratch. I make the cake from scratch, but if I'm in a hurry, you can use the pre-made German chocolate cake element, because it's the icing that sells that one, honey. And oh, that icing is so good. Oh my Lord. And I wanted to make, now I made several things that are just kind of my thing. I saw, Halloween is my Christmas. It's I am year-round Halloween for some reason. I'm just a little weirdo. And I saw these advertisements in the 30s for goblin cakes. and it was a, what was it? A chocolate orange filling. Got me there. With an orange icing and an orange cake. Probably a lot of, dangerous orange dye at that time. But you could only get them through bakeries, and they were using a Betty Crocker recipe that only was allowed to the bakeries. And, it'd be like a 30-cent cake or something, in the 30s. And so you could order your cake and go get it. So I thought, ooh, I want to try that. And there were no recipes for that. So I came up with that. I made a orange chocolate mandarin chocolate orange filling. So you make the cake, because I did it as an icing and put it on a cake, and because it had a little, it wouldn't hold up, but it did on a flat cake if you put it in it. We learned a lot about cooking during this recipe book. But if I used it as icing, it would just kind of slough up. But boy, that icing, that filling, me and a couple other people I know, we put that on everything we could think of and ate it for a week. It was so good. But, so I made an orange cake with orange in it. Mandarin orange, chocolate filling you put in the center, and then an orange icing you put over it. And then you take a paper plate, cut a jack-o'-lantern face in it, put it over it like a stencil, and do the stencils. And eventually I want to have it where, you can buy the stencils online, just whatever, witches flying on brooms and cats and whatever. Or, you can even change that to, not do an orange, do it as something else, and then you make it for other occasions. But, ooh, it's good. But one of the other things I did create or come up with, I thought I have to come up with a few things. So I came up with a redneck trifle. Because I am a redneck. I come from rednecks. I come from a rednecks. So it's not an insult. It's a good thing. But if you know what a Victorian trifle is, they put them in these big glass bowls, and they have like layers of sponge cake and jam and jellies and ladyfingers, which if you've never tried a ladyfinger, they're really good. And you stack it all up until you get to the top, and then you put, whipped cream on it and all this good stuff. So I'm fascinated with trifles. So I thought, all right, now if I was going to be a smart little redneck, because I am a fat little redneck, I thought, now what would be good? So now this is good for people to use on tailgating. You get a big glass bowl. You fill the bottom with a package of pre-made. Now you can make it all from scratch. You can make it as fancy as you want. But here's how to do it the unfancy way, which is you put macaroni and cheese, get the best you can do. Really good stuff. I like Velveeta. And I take, I usually double everything because that's why I'm the fat sucker. But you put the macaroni and cheese in the bottom. Then you take a layer of baked beans. And I like vegetarian baked beans. So I pour the baked beans on top of that. So then you have macaroni and cheese, baked beans, then barbecue pork or whatever on top. Then you can sprinkle corn chips on top or potato chips on top. And then you take a big spoon and you just dip in and get what you want. It sounds funky, but I served that at something last year and they wiped it out and it was good. I reversed it and I'd put the macaroni and cheese out of that order, and it works better with the macaroni and cheese and the beans and the barbecue. So give it a whirl. But if you're afraid the chips will get kind of moist or soggy, just serve them on the side. But it is so good. And if you're having a football game watch or watching shows, you put that big bowl of stuff out and they just help themselves. And it's a whole meal and it's tasty. So, but I came up with that. Isn't that funny? A little redneck kind of thing, a redneck truffle. I hope y'all enjoy that one. And that is in the recipe book as well. And one of my favorite things is the chocolate pecan pie. Make one. A grape cake. I'm trying to think if I have a grape cake in it. I don't know if I have a grape cake, but you could switch any of the recipes that are like the orange cake, a lemon cake, or whatever, and just do it with grapes. Any of these kind of things, and to learning and doing this, I've learned, any of the fruit cake kind of things or things that involve fruit of any kind, cobblers, whatever. You can make a cobbler out of grapes. You can make a cake out of grapes. You can make, whatever you do, just take the seeds out and either mash, take some grapes, peel them, get the seeds out, or if they're seedless grapes, they mash them and put them in. And then have some to decorate the top. You can take them and put them in dampen them a little bit with some water or whatever, and roll them in sugar and let that dry. And so frosted grapes would be beautiful on top. I have a lot of blackberry recipes, blackberry cobblers. Oh my Lord, my mother made a great blackberry cobbler. Oh my Lord. And it's so simple. And it's the way her mama and her mama and her mama made it. And soup, homemade soup. I put in my mama's homemade soup. That soup is the simplest stuff you'll ever make, and it's so good. It just is. I just actually finished off a huge pot of that, and it's always been the thing that I go to. One of the a great comfort food. And but any kind of cake and pies, and hi San, and any kind of pie, any kind of thing, and sometimes someone who's feeling down, a little sugar helps. But if it, I thought at first I thought I was just going to do just desserts. I thought I'm big about making desserts. I'm big about eating desserts too. And but we had so much fun doing this show. But at the end, I know she was ready to kill me because I had to stop. I just couldn't. But every time I would start to stop, I would find, I'd be uncovering more recipes. And, I thought, oh my Lord, she's going to kill me. She's going to bury me. They won't know where I am. And I would have understood it. But we got through it. She worked so hard on this book, kids. And I think it's so pretty on the inside. I think it really is charming in its own way. And it started out as a really different book. So, but now it's got all my favorite recipes in it. So now I'll be using my copy that I have ordered as my cookbook, because I'm like, I want it. I thought, after I started doing it, I go, yeah, this has got everybody's recipes that I know in it that I want. And I know my brothers cook and my sister cooks, but that's not the food I was eating, So I put in my mom, my dad's, my grandma's, mine, because that's the food I've eaten for years and years. And at 62, been doing a lot of, it put a lot of fat on this chick, let me tell you. But there are a lot of very strange and unusual desserts. And strange, some, there was one that I was really surprised. It's, you can make it vanilla or chocolate. Chocolate noodle pudding. And my friend Teal said, it's probably really good. It's probably like tapioca. But you make noodles and you make this chocolate sauce kind of stuff in it. or strawberry or vanilla, whatever it is. And the first reaction I had, I thought, you know, there's one that I don't know what to think about. I have to eat it to see what I think. But one that got in my head was pumpkin fudge because I love pumpkin pie. And I got that, and I going for weeks. I wanted to make it, but I was kind of like, I'm not real good at making fudge. Now, I can cook good food. Take my word for it. But it doesn't always look beautiful. But, boy, it will taste good. But it may look like a holy mess, you know. So when I do my show, I'm going to tell people, try, cook it, send me your picture. I'll post it on there and show people what you can do with it. Because sometimes it looks like I make something with my feet. But, pumpkin fudge, it got in my head, and I thought, I have to have it. I have to try it. And I didn't have a candy thermometer, so I tried to do it the old thing, you know, doing the softball, you know, softball stage where you drop it in water and it makes a ball. And it looked like it made a ball to me, but it didn't quite do. But it has pumpkin in it and sugar and cornstarch and things like that. But you would make it really just is kind of like a real sugary fudge. It didn't quite sit, but I have someone who is still eating that stuff. And they love the flavor of it. And I thought I have to try this. And then it didn't taste like pumpkin to me. It tasted like something I remember called Horehound candy. And I thought, I don't know. Ooh, I kind of like it. And then I'd eat a little more and I thought, ooh, I kind of like it. I don't know if I like it or not. I have to eat more of it to see if I like it. Now I like it. But I've got a candy thermometer coming so I can make fudge. Yes, cool. Because let me tell you what, it is a challenge to make a good fudge that will hold up. Because mine turned into pumpkin sludge. And when I do my show, some things will happen like that. I haven't had very many mishaps where, oh, one time I tried something. I love apple pudding kind of thing, and I tried to do a spin on it with something else. Oh, it was not for me. And a friend one time was so convinced she was going to make me I wanted to try a tofu cheesecake. I'd never tried tofu. So she said, I'll make it. Well, she didn't get the ingredients like the recipe. She just kind of did her own thing and used honey and did some stuff. Oh, I walked in the house, it smelled bad. I said, well, maybe it'll taste better than it smells. And it didn't. And we ended up throwing it out and nothing would touch it. You know, so we threw it in the yard. Nothing would touch it. Not even a hungry animal. So I was like, it's kind of made it where, you know, I'm careful when I make things. But, you know, sometimes, like I said, you know, I have an apple pudding that I make that, oh, it's so good. But it looks terrible to me. But boy, it is good. You know, put a little bit of brandy or a little bit of Kahlua on it, and woo, you're ready to go. But my favorite thing lately has been the chocolate pecan pie. It makes two pies. And I made one, and we had one, and I gave it away, and I went, I have to have another one of these. And we did. And they're so good. And I thought, oh, Lord, we're going to be spokespeople for diabetes, as you know. Woo! But now, so for anyone who hasn't seen it, go on Mark Elliot Fults on Facebook. You'll see, or look on Amazon. They have quite a few of the first page. If you go to the sample on Amazon, it has a lot of recipes, and then the whole index. And it has all of my grandmother's story on it. But it's such a big book. It has a lot of stuff in it, in the sample. So go look at the sample. But my mean old grandma's good old cookbook. and it's just so much fun. It's helped change my life right now. I'm having a good time laughing, and I'm going to be interested in anyone who buys one. Please review it, whether it's good or bad. Just review it on Amazon and let me know that how you think that's going. Because when I start turning this sucker out, it's going to be quite the undertaking. So now I'm going to shift. I think Kat wanted me to talk about some of the other things I'm doing. Because, see, I've been a professional psychic for years, now going into decades. And I'm doing this because this is fun and silly and out there. And so people, when they see this, they won't have, when they see me acting like a fool and getting in the camera doing this. I hate ventriloquist dolls. I'm going to have spooky ventriloquist dolls in it as little characters. I have friends lined up for character parts. It's not going to be anything what you're used to, because it will be food, comedy, then I will tell a ghost story at the end. And ever so often I'll have little characters I have pop up that are scary. That I have a haunted doll collection. So we'll have some haunted dolls that show up that I have to feed, give cookies or brownies or something to make them go away. So it'll be fun. And I hate ventriloquist dolls. I hate them. And I have one that's an old Raggedy Ann ventriloquist doll for girls. And I found that and I went, oh, that is so creepy. I've got to do something with it. So I got it, dolled it up, freaked it up, jacked it up, and scared one of my friends to death with it, just showing it to them. And then they loved it because it was scary. So I'm going to make it really special. So we're having fun. So, I've got all that kind of stuff going on. So, and then people will see me, and people who know me know I do the psychic things, and I've worked with people helping to try and find their missing ones. I got a question from April. How do you know if a doll is haunted or not? Well, for me, I can only speak from my experience. Because I'm an energy technician, I'm a metaphysician. And everyone's aura starts from their third eye and has the magnetite in the pineal gland. It makes sure electromagnetic field. And everything, when you come in contact with it, you scan it. And I can tell if the energy is conscious in an item or an object. I have a 1800s piece of furniture from behind me. It wasn't haunted, but when I find furniture or things that have a consciousness attached to it, I can tell. And the dolls and things that I experience that have energy, I can just, it's from experience. And they've come to me from very unusual circumstances. I have one that is a postmortem doll, Lizzie, who's 43 years old, has the hair of the little girl that died, the baby. That was a mourning mechanism. There are some all the way up. I have dolls that go all the way up to 1960s, because there are dolls, because we put so much into items ourselves, we can put our consciousness into things without knowing we're doing it. And sometimes when children, their only playmates are dolls or toys, they can put that energy that they would put towards people. Sometimes we put that a little more into the items, and it can give a consciousness to these items sometimes. And then there's some, spirits and energies, they don't have anywhere to go. So why not be in something that has eyes and has the semblance? Because they're not seeing with their physical eye, they're seeing with their pineal gland third eye. So they can see through the eyes of the doll, just because they're seeing through the third eyes of the pineal gland, through the orb. When you see an orb, that's a real orb. That's what it is. It's the spirit. So they can see and hear and function through that. So it can be all sorts of things. So it just depends upon the item and what it is. And a lot of people, they're scared of dolls, or they think they're all mean or evil or devils, and it's like, no. I've only met one that was rough. Rough. I found her a new home. All of mine are sweet, but they freak people out because they are just different. So it's not for everybody. And then I see people buying new things that look like spooky dolls, thinking they're spooky and they're haunted, and it's like some of it, I have to, I have to look at it first to make my own decision if I think it's haunted. But I have plenty of things that are haunted. I have 2 books that I have to keep sealed because I don't know what to do with them, and I'm not going to give them to people or sell them because they are not pleasant. They fell into my hands, and I think I'm kind of meant to kind of keep them from other people. Uh, but so I keep them sealed, so they can't be a problem to someone, because they could be. But even though I'm doing the crazy fat psychic thing, I'm also a serious psychic. I can talk to the dead. I can do all sorts of things, and I can try. I mean, actually, tomorrow I'll be teaching a Akashic Library meditation. I do a lot of serious work. I can do past life regression. I can do a lot in the metaphysical field. I can do a lot. And not bragging, just over this time, if I can't do it by now, then, shame on me. And because I want it to be very broad. So, believe me, I'm a broad person. But, so alongside with all of this, I made a decision when I met a famous psychic a few years ago, and they just didn't seem like a happy person. They didn't seem appreciative or anything. It was the grind. And, well, I will talk about astral projection here in a minute. I do astral projection all the time. But they weren't happy. And I thought, do I really want to get, be out there where I'm not happy? And it's like, but I make myself happy. I'm not focused on money. Money is something you have to live with, but it can't be the goal, or the ego can't be the goal, or you miss the point. So, I decided I would do the comedy thing, and then I do some serious stuff on the side. Now, before I go into a little further, April was asking about astral projection. I do remote viewing and astral projection, and everyone does astral projection, whether they know it or not, when you're sleeping, because your spirit is a big thing, and it's a bigger energy than your container holds, because your aura goes out like this, so it's bigger than the vessel it's in. So everybody astrally projects at some point. They just don't know it. And I know over the years I've learned how to remote view and astral project, which takes me into I've always I love to do ghost hunting and stuff, and I got into it a few years ago, and I landed in the wrong crowd, but it taught me so much, so I have to thank them for that. But I did care for them in the beginning, but, there was a lot of things going on. You find out when people get egotistical and greedy and all this stuff, they do everything for the wrong reason. And I was in it to do it for the right reason. I wanted to help people. I want people who are watching that want to see it. I want people to see what there is, because there's so much out there. Why not? It's exploration. It expands our minds. It makes us where we're not so afraid when we die or transition, because it's really a wonderful thing out there. And it's going back into the knowing. And it's not as scary, but ghosts and things like that represent who we'll be one day in this life. Not everyone that's watching, everyone that's in the world. At some point, you transition. There's a lot of belief systems and blah, 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 but we all die. We don't live forever. I know people who actually thought they were going to live forever. And they all tended to be Christians. And which surprised me, because I'm like, well, for your spirit to go somewhere, it's gotta, you gotta die. And they thought they were so good, which, believe me, these ones that were doing this were not good people. And but they just thought, well, I'm gonna be here. I ain't going nowhere. He's not gonna take me. And Jesus is coming. I'm not gonna stick around. And then they were shocked when they died. And so I don't let it take me by surprise. I've already died. So I understand at some point, this is just a temporary rental. At some point, the rental is up. And you got something to do it, and move on. But people want to see what's beyond. So, but I love ghost hunting. But I'm a poor psychic. I haven't been able to go and travel, and everyone gets to go to Scotland and England and Germany and all these places, and it's like, and I'm not sour grapes on that. I'm like, well, if it's my time, I'll get to do that sometime, and if I don't, whatever. It's okay. It's not, but I want to do ghost hunts. And nobody wanted me to do ghost hunts here. I mean, there's plenty of metaphysical groups, but I'm an outsider. And two, there are people who don't want you to come in and do your thing. If your thing shows them up, then there's a problem. So, that's where the ego thing is. I'm more like, we all have a box of crayons. Let's draw out some delights, And that is not how the world is all the time. So I wanted to do ghost hunting, and I thought I could do it through Zoom. And I had an experience not too long ago where I had an accident, fell on a tub. I passed out and fell on the tub, the edge of the tub, and it knocked me into my next life. But it made my skills better. And I didn't know what the rest of it was going to do, but it made my skills better. So I really wanted to do this. So Sin Schroeder Hill has a friend, Eric Sims. And we did a Zoom investigation. That was my first one. And it went really well. It went really well. And, but, you don't always get the way I do things, I try to go into them without knowing first. So that, and sometimes I don't even know what I'm telling you. I'm just telling you the information I'm telling you. So then you don't always get to respond back to find out what it was. But, the stuff that we did, they got the idea I was real. That's something you have to prove all the time. The thing with the psychic, it's not like, well, you get to rest on a laurel. I can do this. You're proving yourself every time you open your mouth. So I did that, and they have a friend named Austin Lawrence. And Sin thought and Eric thought I would be a good match, for working with him. Sweet guys, sweet people. Which is what I like. I don't like jerks. I won't deal with you. If you're an ass, forget it. You can think you're all that and this, ain't happening. Now if you're talented and a jerk, I'll give you a little leeway sometimes, but not much. I don't like it. So these people, sweet people, you know. Uh, I didn't know anything about Lawrence, about Austin. I didn't even look at any of his stuff, and he will tell you he did an interview with Tom Franklin. Hi, Tom. And I've met some very sweet people, Dan from Magical Journey, and Tom Franklin through all of this, and sweet people. And as he was on Tom Franklin's show, the Higher Jupiter. Um, they had a little interview. Um, and they were talking about me. When I got involved with Austin, I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know he was doing a show. They go, well, you're the psychic. You should know. Well, I don't try to know. I just know I'm going to do a job and I'm going to do it. And I don't like to know anything beforehand, which drives me crazy because you want to know. You want to know you're hitting it. So for the first few shows I did with him, I went and did them, and we did Zoom. And it worked out that for me doing it through Zoom, it made me an energy talking to energy. So it turned into quite an interesting experience. And I found out I was doing it better. And I thought, well, it's great. It stinks that I can't be there to do it, but it's great to do it because honey, give me a hammer. I was nailing some stuff. And I was nailing more than I knew. And he and his, Austin and Lydia, his girlfriend, were going to she has a lot of places she works. He had access to, and we were going through those. And then we did one that I think it's life changing in a way. Because, you do these things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I've done. But, I haven't found the way for people to really look at it. I did not realize Austin was skeptical as he is. I didn't know, and I didn't care. I'm not afraid of a skeptic. I'm like, let me show you what I can do, and I will let the work speak for itself. Well, the work spoke for itself. Shocked him a few times, and he played some tricks on me. I didn't know that, and he was kind of like seeding his Facebook to see if I was looking at his stuff and gonna fall for it, and then if I came back and was giving him false information, he would know I was fake. Well, I didn't do that. I didn't do it. I didn't fall for it. I didn't know that's what he's doing. I kind of, I try to just not. I don't go chasing them down, looking at what they do. And he has a project that he's doing the Dead Chronicles, but there's a place that is really close to his heart, and he's really was investigating it, been investigating it a long time apparently, and I didn't really know. And too, when I'm channeling, I do channeling when I do this stuff, so sometimes some things I'll remember, some things I won't. And we went to a jail, and I was telling them, I told them these names, this lady's name and this man's name. And I gave them the correct names of two sheriffs that had been murdered, where they had been murdered, and where the hauntings were and all this stuff. So they knew I was on track, but he was still having a hard time grasping it because he really was real skeptical. So there's this place that he investigates. It's kind of a mental facility in Ohio, I believe. And there were specific things he was aiming at, but he didn't want to give me any information, of course. So I went in, but there was something they were looking for. And so I drew maps. I do remote viewing, and I draw I've been doing that with him. Like I said, I didn't know he was doing a show. I just was like, oh, we're just doing ghost hunts. Because I don't think about it any further than that. You know, I just keep it, this is what I've got to do. So they were looking for something specific in each story that we were looking at. And I would draw out the place and I would draw out a map and I would say, you know, this is where you're looking for the energy and da da da. And apparently I was very on it. More than most people would expect. And that's not a horn toot. That is like, you know, that. But I'm an energy technician. So I should be able to do that. I'm a metaphysician. So if I'm going to do it, I'm saying I'm not doing it, you know, willy nilly. I'm doing it and I'm saying it and I'll stick behind it. So, and I'm human. I mean, if I don't feel well, you know, I can make mistakes too. But I was nailing more than 60, 70, 80, 90%. You know, I was getting it. Shocking them. Can't take all the credit for that. Thank you, spirits, for helping me. But I'm a good operator. So you have to know who you are. You can't be egotistical, but you have to know your skill. You have to know what you're doing, how you do it, and how you get it across. So, and the way he dealt with it, because he was so skeptical, was just perfect. He's gathering the evidence and and he wasn't telling me anything, you little Turk. He wasn't telling me anything. But I was like, okay, whatever. And then, you know, we communicate. And they were looking for something specific. And it was a hidden cemetery. So, without knowing what it looked like, without knowing where it was, I drew this map, a remote viewing. And I drew from these weird little buildings that I could see. I don't question it, I just draw it. And I drew a little map out and where all of it was. And there was a spirit named Mary who was leading me. And she won't show me her face. She still hasn't shown me her face. I've seen her quite a few times. But she was standing there and she was showing me where his graves were. And she was like the operator. So I talked to her and I drew the map. And he had a guy that was going to come out with a sonic thing. And he's told this story before, so I can tell this part of it. It goes into a lot more detail, a lot more evidence, a lot more. But the man came out and said, before I search with my sonic equipment, you know, do you have anything you want to say? And they said, well, we have this, because he was kind of worried about the guy coming out all the way he came, 8 hours away, and they'd raised money for it, and they really wanted to find this graveyard because it was had been hidden. They didn't know where it was. And using the map I drew, and using he had all of his $50,000 equipment stuff in it, but he used dowsing rods, which work. You can use them for water, corpses, whatever. Within 2 seconds, he found the graves. Now, it's a huge amount of graves. I won't tell you a number, but it's a lot more than what they expected, a lot more than what anyone anticipated. But there's another element. So, we'd done all that, you know. I painted the picture of the girl, the Mary, and a monument that she was standing in front of, and a dead tree behind it. And I didn't understand, you know, I thought maybe it was there before or whatever. And my problem is, if I try to figure out some of the story, it's like, don't do that. Let them figure it out. You just tell the information. So I painted this picture of her. I could see her so good, I just painted a picture of her. Gave it to him. I said, take this picture, use it to raise money for a monument, put out there for these people. So I think that's in the works. I'm pretty sure. But they were surprised I'm an artist and I could draw it, and it was okay. It was people really liked the picture. And it's this redheaded woman with a blue dress with the wind blowing and night, and you can see this pillar monument with a tree behind it, this dead tree. Well, they were looking for a specific person who was from this place that had met a terrible end. And when she was buried in a family cemetery, but she was buried unmarked with her children, which was sad. The husband, who was a creep, is buried in the same cemetery. He has a headstone, but they don't. They were just kind of thrown away. So they went looking. They were trying to find her grave, which is in a real cemetery, but it's away, And her name was Ida. And they were looking for Ida. And I said, and they couldn't find her. And they kept going back and looking, couldn't find these graves. And he calls me, and I said, well, did you ask Mary to help you? And he goes, no. And I said, ask Mary, and she'll help you. So the next day he went, he looked for about an hour, couldn't find anything. So he goes, all right, Mary, could you help me find this? Now, this is very skeptical. He's got talents in this department. He just don't realize it yet. He don't realize it. So he does it. He gets drawn to a dome-like or obelisk cemetery stone. Didn't realize it at first, I don't think. And went up to it, and it was the shape of the one I'd painted in the painting with the girl Mary. Her name was Mary Reese. And Reese was the maiden name of the woman they were looking for, Ida, who's buried in an unmarked grave. And in line, they sent me this picture of this tombstone of Mary's, which matches in shape the one in the painting. And there's the dead tree behind it, kind of like what I drew. And it's the stone in the tree, and and they realized it, and they sent me this picture, and it was like the painting, and I was like, wow, it was fun. And so when they start, he's going, can you help us find Ida's grave? And I was on the phone. I don't have a smartphone. I have a flip phone that you might as well send smoke signals. So he calls me, and I said, and I wasn't there. I couldn't see it. He sent me a picture, after we started doing. But I said, all right. I was remote viewing, and I said, turn to your left. You see 3 rows back. You see where there's these spaces where there's no graves. And he goes, yes. And apparently it's the only part in that graveyard. There were no graves. But he didn't say that to me. I said, now, it's 3 rows back. You see the space for this? I said, that's where they are. So he gets a dowsing rod like his friend, I think his name's Bob, had that did, at the other place. And they found him using the dowsing rods and finding 3 graves. The Ida, her 2 children, and he's laughing in the video. And he got up at the top of the hill, and he's laughing because he can't believe he's finding these graves. And that it was where I told him. It's still, he was still wrestling with trying to go, damn, And people throw things in front of me all the time, trying to trip me up and everything. And so when it comes out good like that, it's really good. But when I was looking at the video of him laughing, I could see this dead guy behind him. And I could smell this really strong flower smell. And it was the husband of the woman they were looking for. And he was trying to interfere with what they were doing. So I talked to him. I said, "I can see. Can you see that dick behind you?" And I said, "There's this flower smell." And he goes, "I just smelled that." And I said, "Well, you bumped into him because that was where he's at. But he can't come into a certain part of the cemetery. He's banned by the other spirits." And so that kind of stuff, But when that story comes out, it's pretty dang intricate and a lot. I really kind of have to say, uh, probably some of the most provable psychic evidence I've seen, and I'm the one who did it. And I'm not saying that for ego. I'm saying there's some stuff in there, kids, that I'm like, wow, you know. And the fact that it wouldn't, and two, because he's a good receiver, I work well with him. So it's not just something I did, and it's that he's been researching and he knows all this stuff about it. So he knows when I'm talking about when I don't know what I'm talking about. I just tell him what I'm seeing. There was a weird thing. I told them. I said, "Is there a bar in the backyard? Of this place?" And they go, "Not that we know of," because there was something else they were looking for. And I said, "I see a bar, a metal bar." They went out, sent me back a picture. They found this metal bar and sticking out, and they had never seen it before. They had never noticed it, and there was something specific to that. So there are maps with that I've drawn of buildings on the property. There are maps where the people were. There are things like that. There's the lady Ida. There's other stories with her, and I did a portrait of her, and I did a spirit rescue with her, and I didn't know the name of her children or the any of it. And when I was doing talking to her, the first one that came up, I said, "George is here for you." And then afterwards, he goes, "Well, her daughter's name was Georgia." And I said, "Well," and they were, again sitting there going, "Ooh," what to tell me at the moment. But I was doing the save, and so I said, "Well, they call her George," but I didn't know her name. I didn't know her children's names. I mean, I knew her name, but I didn't know her children's names. And George is a strange name for a girl, but that's what they call her, Georgia or something. It's something like that. And it doesn't always happen like that. But like I said, the combination is good. He's got some psychic abilities he doesn't realize yet. And he makes a good receiver. When I talk to him through energy wise, it works. Um, Now, I mean, he's going to come and see me and interview me for his show because for he wants to really sit in person and talk, and so he's going to do the big trip down here, like a 12-hour trip, to come and interview me in person. So about all this stuff we've done, and I mean, he's done an incredible amount of work, and he's such a nice guy, and he's young. I'm like, you need to relax a little, slow down. But he's really going at it hard. But I think it's great, and I think the way he's collected the evidence is one of the smartest ways I've seen it. I've worked for things where I've given all sorts of evidence, and the people wanted to listen to the sound of their own voice, and they ignored the evidence. And so you banged your head up on the wall for years and years, and nothing happens. And so I did this and didn't expect anything to happen. And now Austin is putting together a show, him and Lydia, and his show is Dead Chronicles, and his show is very good. And the evidence that he's gotten while we work together has really impressed me the way he approached it. And I'm glad that he's skeptical because, you don't want someone going, oh, yes. You want someone to have a little edge, to listen and see if you're really hitting it. Do I recognize other psychics? Yes, I do. And I've worked with quite a few psychics. I have quite a few psychic friends. Yes, and there's Dan. I hear everybody. And I love Dan. I love all of these people. I've had such a good time meeting JV and everybody. I mean, the door is open so interestingly. But um, with psychics, I have had to work with psychics. I take it very serious because when somebody comes to you with a problem, you don't know what that problem can turn into. Someone could be on the verge of killing themselves. Someone could be so bereft. One word can save them. Save their sanity. Sometimes you have people coming to you. Uh, you just have to. I go into it. I throw it all at the wall, and I'm in, all out. If I feel like it's not for me, I'll send it to somebody else. And I'm waving at everybody that's saying hi to Mark. Um, and I have worked in a place where there were other psychics. And the thing is, with psychics, you have to keep an open mind. And if they're, they have to make a living too. Okay? Let's get that out of the way. A lot of people think you're psychic, you shouldn't make a living with it. Well, you need to make a living with it if you're doing it as a living. But you need to have your skills up to a certain level. And if you're charging someone for a reading, charge them for the reading. A lot of people don't appreciate it if they don't get paid for it. But there are tons of times I've done free readings for some people who didn't have money or who were desperate and just didn't have it. And it's like, honey, I'm not here for that. I'll do what I need to do when I need to do it. And there have been plenty of times I've done it free. I've met psychics who wouldn't do that. They'd let you walk off, and if you didn't pay them that $20-$30 or whatever it was, we were working for scraps. But that $30 is a lot of money to some people. But they all think they should be paid, $2 and $3 and $4 and $500. Well, that's fine. Make the work worth it. Do the right work. And I've worked with people that I had to listen to what they were telling people using psychological tricks and psychological manipulation to do their reading. And I almost got up and started. I've had several times in my life I thought, where's the stick? I'm going to play psychic pinata. And right now, because I take it very seriously. And I don't like people ripping people off. I don't like people doing things that that not trusting their energy, their power, their abilities. It's not power, but abilities, talents. If you're going to do it right. And I've been around a lot of people who just didn't do it the way I think maybe it should be done. Because people are coming to you. You're a social worker, and so you have to be open and kind, but you also have to be firm because sometimes you have to tell people things they don't want to hear. And but you have a set price, you charge that. If someone does a price and you do it, and then they go, "Oh, you have a curse on you. Give me $300 or $600." Or I've seen someone who does readings for an outrageous fortune, but the first level is just the reading. If you want to talk to your spirits, it's 200 more, and if you want to do it, well, I thought, well, what kind of picnic basket are they thinking they got? And I've seen them, and I'm like, I wouldn't give you 10 cents. So, you got to be, not everybody who thinks they're psychic are psychic. There are some people who mean well that have some ability, but they may not know always what they're looking at. So you have to really do your research. And if it turns out, if they start going into, well, you need to bring me more money, at midnight on the moon or every month, then you need to get up and walk off. Uh, and check what they're telling you. If what they're telling you doesn't ring true, you'll know it. And there are some fabulous psychics out there, and you have to be willing to look at it and see what they're telling you, see what their talent is, see what their motivation is. But like I said, when I sit around, I can tell a real psychic, and I can tell somebody who's really full of it. And I have seen a few of those, and not my cup of tea. But but I try to do everything with a little bit of love and kindness and firmness. But I try to do it with, I was given a gift, and hey, babe, I was given a gift. Uh, I'm here to share it. You know, a lot of times psychics and people like that wear special little bubbles that only last a little while. So I'm trying to get everything done and done in a way where I'm doing my purpose. And then one day, I'll be out there with them, you know, with the spirit, with the spooks, the poofs, and the all the ghosts. So, but until then, I'm going to give it my whirl. So, but anybody that you go to, you can find out if they're good. If they're not good, don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Um, and let me tell you, it's like anything. You're always going to meet people that are good, and then there's some that need a little work, and then there's some people who would be great. They just need a little work. There's Denise and Ron Pridemore. Yes, locally we're doing a paranormal meetup on Thursday, so uh, the first Thursday of every month. So we're going to be doing a brew house. So look at Denise Pridemore's Facebook page, or look at mine. I've got to post all that. Make sure I'll post. Now see, since I've been dropped on my head all so many times in my life, I have to make sure I keep track of what I'm doing, because it's like I'm great at the psychic stuff. Some of this other stuff eludes me, or I'll go, huh, what, where, who, So, but we're getting close to the end of the show, and I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I've talked recipes and ghosts and spirits and a little bit of all in between. But and there was somebody on there who questioned about dreams. Um, since I have insomnia, I don't always interpret other people's dreams. But dreams can mean something, and then sometimes it can be just your mind. There it is. Jenny Atkins. I can't explain them tonight because we're about done. But for tonight, but dreams can mean specific things. They can be foretellings and omens, and then sometimes it can be your brain is just so full uh, that it all comes out when you're dreaming, and So you have to, not all of it means something, and then there are very important ones that are. I've had some very important things I've had to keep track of. And then there have been some dreams that I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's PTSD and stuff. But one of the most interesting ones I had a while back was about 9/11. So I'm about to do some things I think about that, looking at the spirits and things there. Um, my part in life, I am a little bit of a spirit rescuer, and I want to help find peace for people who are a little lost. I try to find out if someone is disturbed spiritually because of something that happened to them and they can't get it across. I've been the spokesperson for quite a few, or mouthpiece for several spirits who needed help. And so, in my place in life is to be a helper and a counselor to spirits and to people. And to know that there's not that much between us and the veil. There's people here all the time. There's people on the other side right near you all the time. If you could see all the time, it'd be very distracting. But we're living in a world that is metaphysical. And this world has a self-regulatory system. It has a thinking brain. It has a soul of its own. And we're in it. We're part of it. We have a place to be in it, and we have a part to play in it. But don't think you get all that done when you die. Do it now. Work on your life. Tell people who you love them. Try to fix any mistakes you make, and if you can't, own them and go, what did I learn from that? And figure out what you learn. It's very important. I've had friends who tell me, oh, Jenny is saying, can I message you for a reading yet? Yes. Message me at Mark Elliot Fults on Facebook. And I do readings. And right now I'm taking a little break from that for a week or so because I got to finish up. I just closed my store. And I'm having to get a lot of things done in closing up and get all my taxes done. So contact me, and I will make an arrangement for you. I do readings over the phone. Yeah. So I hope something I've had to say tonight. I hope it's you've been entertained. I hope that you check out Tom Franklin's and Austin Lawrence and Magical Journeys and Sin Schrader Hill and Teal Gray and J.V. Noseworthy and Tommy Collins and all the great people out there. There's so many out there. Miami Ghost Chronicles. And just look at all these great people. Look at all these wonderful things going on. Don't let the weirdness going on distract you. There's a lot to distract you right now, and a lot of it's going to come to nothing. And let me tell you what, as a child of the 60s, we went through our president being killed, icons like Martin Luther King, Marilyn Monroe, all sorts of people changing. We had the Vietnam War, we had the hippie movement, we had a lot of structures change and come and go, and people fighting in the streets, and alongside all this horrible stuff, we have beautiful color and comedy and incredible creativity and music. Whoa! I mean, when is the music gonna start coming back? We have a few singers now, but when I was a kid, oh my gosh, it was a wall of music. I mean, you had 30 or 40 artists to choose from. Hits at the same time, And it's like there's some good singers, but we need to get some more We need to get a wave of music. We need to get a wave of talent. We need to get a wave of spirituality. So, but get out there and do it. Write those songs. Do that art. Be the heart. So now it is time for us to say goodnight. Thank you, Kat, and your gentleman that helped me with this. And thank you for letting me be on the show. And thank y'all for listening to me. And I hope I didn't bore you. And I'll be back online here pretty soon doing cooking shows. So check out the books and give me a holler if you want a reading. And I'll do what I can do. But try to go out there, be the best you can be. Love yourself, love other people, and be real. And don't put up with fools. Just walk off. You walk around them. Don't have to knock anyone over. Just walk around them. Keep going. Don't get caught in any of this crap that's going on. It's going to pass too. So I want to tell you all thank you for coming and watching. And I've enjoyed myself. I hope you have a good evening. And blessed be. Good night.